Welcome to the Embracing Neuro-Diversity podcast, where I share my journey of embracing the experience of my amazing son who is on the spectrum. I am Ivory, a mother, educator, and personal growth enthusiast. My goal is to offer insight and stories that may inspire you on your own parenting journey. Thank you for tuning. Good morning. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Embracing Neuro-Diversity podcast. As you heard from the intro, and if you are a returning listener, my name is Ivory. I am an autism mom, educator, and personal growth enthusiast. Thank you again for tuning in and supporting as usual. Happy New Year. Happy holidays for those who have not been able to tune in since the holidays. I hope that your year is starting off strong. I want to dive right into this week's podcast episode. And our focus this week is about embracing uncertainty. I think it is an incredibly relevant topic as parents of neurodiverse children, and we will dive into that in a moment. I want to preface this also by naming that you all know that I have been reading Brianna Wiest's book, The Pivot Year. We talked about it in our last podcast episode. And so this episode is also inspired by much of what I am reading in her book. And so I highly encourage you to pick up some of her work or YouTube some of her work to get a deeper understanding about how she centers personal development, personal growth, mindset shifts, and how I find it incredibly important as parents of neurodiverse children, because oftentimes we look externally at the barriers in society and even at our children's barriers, or perceived barriers, I should say. But really the work begins with us. That is what this podcast is about. And so I hope that today's episode is relevant to you. Oftentimes we find that we are asking ourselves questions like, will my child develop the skills they need to thrive? How will they navigate social situations? Will they be able to live independently one day? These are heavy questions, and they leave us feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and stuck in a cycle of worry. But what if we could reframe uncertainty? What if instead of fearing the unknown, we embraced it as a space for potential and possibility? Hear me out. That's what we're going to dive into today, about embracing uncertainty with hope, curiosity, and an open heart. So, let's start by acknowledging something important. Uncertainty is a natural part of life. For every parent, there are unknowns about their child's future. But for those of us raising neurodiverse children, these unknowns can feel even more pressing. Will my child make friends? How will they manage school transitions? Will they find a community where they truly belong? These are real questions that if we are honest with ourselves, we ask. I certainly ask myself on a daily, weekly basis. If I'm not monitoring my thoughts, these questions are on a constant loop, and I have to redirect to not only stay present, which we've talked about in past episodes, but to not worry about the future, right? These uncertainties can create a lot of fear because our brains are wired to seek safety in the familiar. I want you to know that so that you are not hard on yourself about some of your thoughts, right? When we don't know what's coming, it can feel like we're standing on shaky ground. But here's the thing. Uncertainty is not just an empty void. It's a space where potential lies. And Brianna Wiest, she says this in her book. When you do not know what is next, you enter the realm of infinite potential. What a beautiful and powerful way to reframe the unknown. So for me, oftentimes when I'm worried about the future, I remind myself that I have the power to create the future for myself and Khalil that we most desire. By being present, by creating goals, routines, and creating a disciplined and purpose-filled life for us both. I recently read about Brianna Wiest's idea of reframing uncertainty as a source of potential, and this concept really stuck with me. Instead of seeing uncertainty as something to fear, we can see it as fertile ground for growth, creativity, unexpected outcomes. After all, it's in moments of uncertainty that we often learn the most about ourselves and our children. They can often surprise us and go beyond the expectations that even we have had for them. So, how do we shift our mindset from fear to curiosity when it comes to uncertainty? It's not easy. I want to acknowledge that. This is not a small feat, but it is possible. One way to do this is by asking open-ended questions with a sense of wonder rather than worry or dread. For example, instead of thinking, what if my child struggles to make friends forever? We can ask, I wonder what kind of friendships my child will develop and how I can support them along the way. You see how that simple shift sort of decreases the worry and anxiety? This subtle shift in language helps us approach the unknown with curiosity, which opens us up to seeing possibilities rather than focusing solely on potential challenges. Curiosity allows us to become more present and respond more effectively. When we let go of needing to know every answer or control every outcome, we create space for new discoveries. We learn from our children, in fact, when we let go of the need to control. We learn alongside our children rather than projecting fears onto their future. I need you all to know and understand that the way that the things that we think, the statements that we make oftentimes project the future that we are most afraid of. So be mindful of the questions that you are asking yourself. Here's something that I've learned about parenting my son Khalil. There have been so many times when I didn't know how a situation would play out. Like the first time I took him to a birthday party, or the first time I signed him up for one of those, a sports class, one of those, I signed him up for, it's an organization called Kids Strong. They have like chains across the United States. And I signed him up for that. It's sort of like an obstacle course, and it teaches character development and physical stamina. I think about the first time I signed him up for that. Incredibly nervous, did not know how he would respond. Unsure if he'd feel comfortable and included. But I stayed curious and open. I discovered that he had strengths and ways of connecting that I didn't imagine. So while he is not having conversations with young people, he's able to run and play and engage in activities. He smiles and laughs with his peers along the way. Every moment of uncertainty became an opportunity for him to, in some ways, surprise me, and in others, confirm that he has the potential to live a thriving life. And for me to learn more about his capabilities. Now, for Kid Strong, it didn't quite work out. He was not taking direction well. He was not able to engage at the age level of his peers, but I learned a lesson that he wasn't ready and we would try again next year. Stay open to the possibilities. Brianna Wiest also says, there is great power in not knowing. The power comes from allowing life to unfold without clinging to rigid expectations. Another key to embracing uncertainty is building resilience, both in ourselves and our children. Resilience doesn't mean that we won't feel fear or anxiety. It means that we can move forward even when those emotions are present. You'll need coping skills. You'll need tools to manage those emotions, but choosing to move forward anyway is the key for yourself and your child. It means trusting that whatever comes our way, we have the capacity to navigate it. One practical way to build resilience is by focusing on what we can control. We may not be able to predict the future, but we can control how we respond in the present. I want to repeat that again. We can control how we respond in the present, which again dictates how our future plays out. When we can create routines that offer stability, practice mindfulness to stay grounded. As parents, you must stay grounded emotionally for sure, and lean on our support systems when things feel overwhelming. I say these same 3 strategies probably every podcast episode. It is because they are true, they are effective, and that will never change. Create a routine that offers stability. Practice mindfulness to stay emotionally grounded, and lean on your support system. 1, 2, 3. Speaking of support system, community is such a vital part of navigating uncertainty. As parents of neurodiverse children, we need spaces where we can share our experiences, be vulnerable, and find strength in knowing we're not alone. This is why I do this work with the podcast. This is why I wrote the book, Transformative Parenting. This is why I do the advocacy work that I do. That's part of why So Brianna Wiest offers another helpful perspective when she writes, what feels on the surface like rejection is often redirection. This has been true in my own life as a parent. Sometimes when I felt disappointed by certain outcomes, it often led to new paths and better opportunities once I could not have imagined at the time. In my own personal life, but also for my son Khalil. Lastly, I want to talk about hope. I know it's such a fluffy term and people are resistant to it because it doesn't always feel like it's providing tangible results in the moment. But hope isn't about denying the challenges that come with uncertainty. It's about believing in the potential for positive outcomes, even when we can't exactly see how things will unfold. Believing in possible outcomes is often harder than leaning into negativity. Negativity, doubt, fear is such a strong force that oftentimes leaning into hope and possibility feels fruitless. But it is the strongest element in this journey. Hope allows us to dream for our children without being weighed down by fear. It helps us celebrate progress, no matter how small. Remember, I told you all, celebrate the big and the small, however you define that to be. And hope allows us to recognize the unique gifts our children bring to the world. Lastly, hope gives us the courage to keep moving forward. This is a marathon, not a destination. This is a lifestyle. Okay? Even when the path isn't clear, we have to commit to moving forward with hope. I want to share a quote that really resonated with me. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. I want to repeat that again because I believe it's important for us to release the idea or the expectations that we have for our children. So this quote reminds me of that. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. It's the whole idea of that things are not happening to you, they are happening for you, and that ultimately all is well. This quote also reminds me that even when outcomes are uncertain, our love, our effort, and our commitment to our children is what matters the most. So, as I wrap up this episode, I invite you to reflect on your relationship with uncertainty. How might you begin to approach it with more curiosity, resilience, and hope? Remember, uncertainty isn't something we have to fear. It's a space where beautiful, unexpected possibilities can emerge. Thank you all so much for spending time with me. As usual, I'm incredibly grateful for this space, for the support, for the community. And of course, if you found today's episode helpful, please share it with another parent who may need to hear this message. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time, take care of yourself. Bye.